I'm Tim, welcome to Watch One, and thanks for logging on. Today we're looking at the IWC Big Pilot Perpetual Calendar 2010 Limited Edition, 46mm in brushed and polished stainless steel. This one of 250 limited edition represents a little bit of a flamboyant take on the traditional IWC Big Pilot's form, with abundant in-house complication courtesy of IWC's own manufacture, automatic movement. Now, this watch, which is part of our inventory on watchyouwant.com, is for sale, and you get a sense of how it might wear on your wrist from seeing it on mine. My wrist is 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference, and you can see that the watch wears big because that's the style. Now, originally, the watch that inspired this, sometimes known as the B from the 1940s, was a Luftwaffe model that was well over 50 millimeters in diameter. So if this looks big, just remember, contrary to almost every other watch in the modern marketplace, IWC actually had to pare down the inspiration from history in order to make this one work on a daily basis. Now you'll see it is quite thick, being over 16 millimeters thick. This isn't one that's going to clear a sleeve or a cuff very easily, but it does wear comfortably. So from that perspective, if you can clear the sleeve, you're good to go with absolute ergonomic pleasure. Almost any circumstance you can think of, this watch wears remarkably light for its size and its full stainless steel construction. Now, given that it does have a display case back, that helps to lose some of the mass of the oversized metal case, and the quality of this black alligator strap with contrasting orange stitch and beautiful period-inspired rivets is outstanding. Heavily bolstered with square sides, you can see how nicely that's finished and also how sheer it is. It feels an absolute treat on the wrist. Now, the underside is calf, so while alligator for durability is used on the top, calf for souplesse is used on the bottom. Everything that touches the skin feels great. Now, like other IWC Big Pilot's watches, the clasp, single deployant, is very, very substantial. Also beautifully finished with polish on the inside and brushing on the top of the buckle. IWC put a lot of time and care into this design to make it look beautiful, but also to make it as solid and substantial as the rest of the watch. Now, the B was a no-nonsense instrument-style watch. Some of that aesthetic carries over here. Some of it's been elaborated for the sake of the modern luxury consumer who wants it all. Complication, historical references, and a little bit of joie de vivre. Well, you've got it all here. This dial features a lot of the calibration style as well as the broadsword hands of something like a dashboard instrument from the analog aviation era. Now, a lot of those are still flying today, so private pilots and long-term commercial pilots are going to be familiar with this look, but it's been elaborated from a pure flight deck instrument to a high horology multifunction masterpiece. What you've got here is a very comprehensive perpetual calendar based on IWC's own Kurt Claus Perpetual Calendar module. So not only is it their own automatic base movement, but the module on top is their own innovation. Since 1985, they've been continuously evolving and elaborating this movement, or rather I should say this module, and it remains one of the most user-friendly in the business. Everything, the double moon phase for the northern and southern hemisphere, the month, the day, the date, can be adjusted using the single crown. There are no case side pushers, you'll note, on this watch, keeping the look clean and ensuring absolute hermeticity in a fashion you just can't get with dimple case side pushers. So the watch features a very user-friendly calendar because everything moves in coordinated sequence. When you do move the crown to the setting position, it's no more challenging than setting the date on a quick-set Rolex, because the day, the month, the date, even the year, the century, and the moon phase will never go out of sequence. Just don't adjust it ahead. You can't adjust it back, but provided you set the watch to today's date, you'll know everything else is correctly coordinated. There's no mental math to be done there. Now, an additional feature that you get on these modern Big Pilots with IWC's in-house automatic is a 7-day, 168-hour power reserve. And I want to go over just how that's possible and talk a little bit about the IWC 50,000 series movements. Originally introduced in 2000, this modern generation movement remains the largest automatic winding automatic in the world. That's significant because building a movement to fill the case is a competency of an exceptional manufacturer. A lot of times on watches, you'll see, especially with chronographs, you'll see the registers or the calendar modules, if it's a calendar, placed too close together. You'll see the sub-registers almost look crowded on the dial, and when you get to the case back, you'll see all manner of empty shoulder around the circumference or a small display back on a huge watch because the movement is almost comically undersized. A manufacturer that can build both the case and the movement can build the movement to fill out the case, giving you more to see, and also the sense that everything was designed in one step, all of a piece, not a committee design. But what you get beyond that with IWC is real engineering prowess. Now, the Schaffhausen company has incorporated elements from its history here. It's got some architecture elements from the modern age. For instance, the Peloton winding system, pawl-based, bidirectional, very smooth. There's no sense of a flopping, unweighted rotor moving in a non-winding direction on your wrist as you can get with some unidirectional winders. It's also a very efficient system, so it does a great job of energizing the movement. Once you top this one off with 7 days of power, the automatic is going to keep it topped off. And if you're the type who might see this as an occasional watch due to the color combinations, well, no fear. You can rotate this one as your weekend watch and leave it during the week, knowing that the 7 days of autonomy between windings and the abundant winding when it's on the wrist are going to keep it functioning, going to keep all of its indications correct, on track, and ready for your next fling. But when I talk about some of the heritage elements in here, I'm also talking about features like the general pocket watch style layout, the choice of separate escape wheel and balance cock design. This is a little bit of an homage to the IWC tradition of pocket watch manufacture, something that started in 1868 with the founder F.A. Jones, himself an American, and continued right up through the 20th century. To this day, they still use pocket watch movements in some watches, like the Portuguese references, for instance, as an homage to their heritage, but even some of the automatics bear subtle nods and winks to those who know where IWC came from. Not to say that they haven't been elaborated to modern standards. Important to note that this is a free-sprung balance, so it doesn't have an index that can be moved or displaced by shock, changing the timing of the watch accidentally, so it is sports watch tough. Also, there's a handmade Breguet overcoil hairspring. The significance of that is that it's very thermally resistant. It moves the center of gravity of the hairspring closer to the center, so that given that it's closer to being coaxial with the arbor of the balance, if you do put the watch at an angle on your dresser at night, really any orientation, it's less likely to gain or lose time as a result of that Breguet overcoil. Now, there's a lot more going on in this movement, everything from the ability to lock out 1 day of power reserve, because it is truly an 8-day, not a 7-day movement, but that last day of power reserve is always held charged up. The watch will lock itself out rather than discharge completely, because IWC knows that the timing sweet spot of this mainspring is 7 days, between essentially the 24 hours remaining and 7 days fully charged. So it will not allow the mainspring to discharge to the point that the watch runs but does not keep good time. So you've really got it all. You've sort of overcome the Achilles heel of traditional single mainspring barrel, large power reserve watches, which is that they don't always keep good time for the duration of that huge power reserve. IWC overcomes that. They add refinements like the Breguet, like the free-sprung balance, their own Peloton winding system, and they make it beautiful to look at. And frankly, with the gold inset medallion, the beautiful circular Côte de Genève, a tight and beautifully laid perlage pattern around the periphery on the base plate of the movement, this is a beautifully finished sight for a connoisseur. As big as it is, you can appreciate the features of this movement without a loop. If you do take a loop to it, you're still going to be pleased. Everything is beautifully polished. There are no rough machining marks or stamping vestiges. Everything about it's as beautifully finished as it is engineered. And of course, there's this dial, a rare sight among Big Pilot watches. While IWC has launched many references in this family, this particular combination of black and orange remains a true zinger with a stinger. This is a watch that people remember and can't help but smile when they see. It's a fun watch. It's an exuberant watch. Yes, it's a Big Pilot, but it's a little more than that too. You can check out this IWC Big Pilot Perpetual Calendar 2010 limited edition, one of 250 made, on our website, watchyouwant.com. And if you like these videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Watch You Want Inc.